family. I am super excited to get to introduce our first speaker for tonight's Ignite call, and that is the amazing Jessica Jacobs. And she is a terrific, wonderful human being, a sweet friend of mine, and a diamond leader with Young Living. And she is now a master at natural gardening. So we're super excited to have her tonight. She's a great wife and mom. She was a math teacher, which I'm always impressed with. So she's great at our comp plan and all the math things as well. So one reason I was so excited that she said yes to share her passion for gardening with us is because it is that time of year, right? It is spring. We're all thinking about that, as well as it's always a good time to get chemicals out of your life, whether that is on your lawn, in your soil, in your food, in your personal and household care products. So it is a bioaccumulation, right, in the body. So kicking the chemicals to the curb is best in all parts of your life and benefits you best when you get them out of everywhere. So thank you so much for sharing with us tonight, Jessica, and take it away.
Awesome. Well, I am so honored to be here, Danette. Thank you for asking me. And what a wonderful intro, man. If you feeling down about yourself, just let Danette, introduce you. She is amazing and so gracious. But yeah, thanks for having me. This is definitely something that a couple years ago, it was probably in the middle of quarantine that I realized that I actually enjoyed gardening. I had been doing it for about 8 years at that point, but it was just a side hobby. It was just something, kind of that I did. And it was during that time that I realized I really, really loved it. And I had learned quite a bit over the previous 8 years. And so my husband and I actually started beginning of last year, we started putting in gardens for other people and, just really getting into teaching others how to garden. It has, like I said, been something I've done for a long time, and it's been a passion. I just didn't realize it. I was busy raising little babies and, they had my attention. And I remember going to a convention thing for homeschooling and moms and whatnot. And the lady said, she goes, a lot of times, moms lose their identity, when their kids are young. She said, if, I want to challenge you to do something. She said, I want you to go to the grocery store, stand in front of the yogurt section and figure out what flavor you would like to eat. She goes, not your kids, not the leftovers or, what flavor of yogurt? She goes, and if you can't answer that question, we have some work to do. And I remember, kind of laughing at that and then going, well, yeah, what do I like? And so sometimes, it doesn't always have to be with kids. It can just be the time of life that, you've given yourself to different things, whether that's your career or, whatever. And you tend to lose yourself sometimes. And, it's like, okay, if you, could be whatever you wanted to when you grew up, or if you had an entire day to yourself, what would you like to do? And so the last few years, I've really just found that, I love gardening and I love helping other people garden. I really love helping, brand new gardeners, plant food and, that first harvest. I love getting pictures from people of, their cherry tomatoes and their cucumbers and all the things. And it just is so fun. But I also think that it's super important to really, get connected with our food sources. Even the best organic foods that you buy at the store are crap compared to what you can grow in your backyard. Am I allowed to say that? There is no comparison because, if you've done any kind of research, that even organic gardening, they can put all sorts of, what you buy at the store, they can put all sorts of junk on your food still. So, the best food that you can, ever eat really is what you can grow yourself. So I love, like I said, just helping people get connected with their own food source. And it's such a learning experience to learn how much goes into the foods that we eat and how difficult it actually is to grow food, let grow, the amount of food that we need. So I hope tonight to be able to share with, no matter where you're at in your gardening experience, whether you're just starting out, whether you've been gardening for years, whatever the case may be, I've got some tips, just super practical for, gardening. I've got, oils that you can use in the garden. I would say that the way that I use my Young Living products the most is on me. While I'm gardening, after I'm gardening, after I get sunburned or bug bites or things. And so Young Living has told them, they have come out with new products in the last few years that I use all the time, being outside. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and try to follow what I have here. All right. And then see if I need to do this. See if I can make this bigger. Come on, there we go. All right. Is that good there? Hopefully it is. Somebody tell me if it's not. Okay. So that's me and my husband. That was actually in our garden. So a little bit about our gardening. We had a backyard garden, made some raised beds 11 years ago, I think it was now. Started with 2 small ones, start small, and we continued to add to those beds. We moved about 4 years ago and moved to a half an acre. And so we decided to try in-ground gardening because that sounded like fun. And we are now in the process of switching everything back over to raised bed gardens again. And I'll talk a little bit about that coming up here. But tonight, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of gardening philosophy. You can learn so much from gardening about life, right? About yourself, about patience and optimism and failure and all sorts of fun things. But let me tell you, I really don't think that there is anything else like it. And I think that it's, just one of the best ways to spend your time. You can think a lot of thoughts while you're tending a garden. So we're going to talk a little bit about starting a garden. If like I said, if you've not gardened before, I want to give you a couple tips, tending a garden and then troubleshooting. So that is a picture of my garden there on the top. This was last spring. So I love gnomes. I have gnomes all over my house. I liked gnomes before they were cool. I actually dressed up. So she's 10 and a half now. When she was 1, I dressed her up as a gnome for Halloween. And darn if she wasn't the cutest little gnome you have ever seen. But anyway, so I have gnomes all over. People send me like pictures of, things that they find that I should buy all the time for gnomes. Anyway, so I love seeing pretty pictures of gardens, and that's what mine looked like last year. And right now it doesn't look that pretty. All right, moving along, because we tore everything out. And this last weekend, we got 4 of our beds planted. And anyway, it's been a very busy weekend. Okay, so philosophy. My philosophy about gardening, I kind of mentioned a couple things. It requires that you be a lifelong learner. There are still things I do wrong after gardening for 11 years. You will never be perfect. You will never have a perfect harvest or year. There will always be something out of your control, which if you're a control freak or a recovering one like myself, gardening will teach you a lot about how little control you actually have over most of this stuff. And it's like shocking to me that, we eat it all with, too much rain, too little rain, this pest, that pest, oh, this other pest that you never knew existed. And I mean, there's just so many things. And I feel like every year I learn something new. So if that is your attitude going into this, that, this is kind of one big experiment. Thankfully, most of us don't have to, rely on our own personal gardens to feed our families. Thank the Lord. But I every year it's like, okay, let's see what happens this year. And, know that you're going to walk away with more knowledge than you had. That's just such an important, I feel like, attitude to have about gardening. Patience, for sure. Constant hope, optimism, kind of the same thing. But I love looking at a fresh garden that's just been planted, whether it's mostly seeds or transplant plants, it's just so fun to look at, knowing what is about to happen over the next couple months, the transformation that's going to happen. And I feel like if we can view more of life that way, we would be happier people in general. But anyway, not afraid of failure. Something else that you have to have. You must have access to the internet. Okay. And that might sound like a little out of place in this list of, rainbows and butterflies. But I will tell you that I still Google things all the time. And I will also tell you this, that I get clients that text me questions that I go to Google for. I look up the answer and then I send them what I find. Or DuckDuckGoose or whatever, Go, whatever it is. I always think DuckDuckGoose when I see that search engine, whatever search engine you use. Go, like, literally, you can Google or DuckDuckGo anything that happens in your garden. Pinholes in tomato leaves. You can go Google that. When do I harvest a cucumber? Like, literally, there's your internet isn't going to laugh at you, right? Like, you might be embarrassed to send that question to somebody, but the internet won't laugh. So go, put it in your internet search engine and read a couple different sources. But I still do that because sometimes I forget things from last year, or I don't have time to go, look in a book. So the internet can be a great resource. Also, remember this, that a garden, we are taking, a whole bunch of plants that don't naturally grow next to each other, or maybe at the same time of year, or all of these kinds of things, and quite literally putting it in a box and saying, give me food. We are, making it grow the way we want it to, whether that's the shape or, up a trellis or some of these things. And sometimes that's because it grows better that way, but sometimes it doesn't naturally grow that way. And so just knowing that, we're kind of forcing nature into this box, and sometimes it rebels a little bit. Again, keep that experiment, that, lifelong learner attitude, and you won't get nearly as frustrated. All right, so let's talk about, I can't even see my thing here. Let's talk about starting out. Is that what that says? The bar is in the way. Starting out, if you are just starting out and you don't have a garden, or this is going to be your first year, you're like, I'm going to grow something. I hope that all of you on here are going to grow something, commit to grow something. Okay. Even if it's literally going and buying a pot from the store, putting soil in it, buying a tomato plant, sticking it in there, grow something. Okay. So there are a number of kinds of gardens, and this is a question that I get rather often. First off, what kind of garden? So the main types of garden you can do an in-ground garden where you literally till or dig up the soil and plant it in the ground. That works if you have a good amount of space. If you do not have a lot of grass that's growing, that works well. I will tell you from experience, that was one of the things reasons why I'm changing to a raised bed garden, is because we had grass and weeds all in our in-ground garden, and it just kind of overtook things, and it became really annoying. So that is one of the reasons why we're switching. But if you have the space, if you have tons of space and you have a tractor and you can drive it down, great. I will not go back to in-ground gardening short of a garden big enough to have a tractor. So one of the other kinds is raised beds, which that is super popular now. We're going to talk about kind of some different kinds, materials that you can use here in just a second. But a raised bed is, literally you put some sort of I'll say retaining wall, you fill it with dirt, and you plant in that dirt. One of the other things about where I live, we have clay soil that is devoid of any nutrients. And so we are always having to put, new soil on top of the dirt. So even with my in-ground, I was constantly having to add soil to it because what was there was not very nutrient dense. And then the last kind that I hear a lot about that, is kind of all the rage is the tower gardens. And there's a couple different kinds. And I see a lot about them. I've looked into them a little bit, but here is what I know. There are some situations that works really good for, if you're in an apartment or You can't bend over very well. That's a friend of mine. She was like, I have back issues and I can't bend over. She does use Young Living. So, she has the products, but there are reasons why a tower might work for you, but there are a lot of downsides to it. And if at all possible, do a raised bed. It is way easier. So many more, like, it's so much easier. The tower gardens, it's very little soil there for each plant. And so it works for things like lettuce or kale, greens that don't need a lot of nutrients from the soil. But because it's such a small amount of soil, it's going to heat up really fast. And it's also going to get colder than normal soil that is, on the ground. Even the raised beds, those beds typically are on the ground. And so they will stay cooler in the summer. They will stay warmer in the winter. There's more nutrients. When your raised bed is on the ground, it can still get worms and bugs. Those are good. You want those in your garden. You can also get good fungus and bacteria from the soil, from the ground. They can come up into your raised bed, which you want. The tower gardens, they can't do that. And you have to water the tower gardens, especially in the summer. You have to do it like twice a day because, again, that soil, there's not very much, so it's not going to be able to hold the moisture. So again, if you might not have a backyard, right? Or it might be AstroTurf. When we were looking at houses 4 years ago, there were a lot of people that had like taken out all the grass and put in AstroTurf. So maybe you can't have a garden there. So there are situations where a tower would work, but if at all possible, do a raised bed of some kind, and you can do that for fairly cheap. All right, where to put your garden? If at all possible, you want it to be on the south side of your house. There is more sun on that side. I didn't even realize until we moved into this house the way that the sun works. And don't get me wrong, I realize it rises in the east, sets in the west. Like, I didn't mean like that. But in the winter, it actually moves. The sun moves south. And so your north facing things are more in the shadows. And so they're not going to get as much sun. So if at all possible, put your garden on the south side so that it will get sun more in the winter. You need 6 to 8 hours of good full sunlight for your garden. Okay. There is no such thing as too much sun. That is something that people ask. I'm like, nope, our garden literally gets full sun all day long. And that is what you want, especially for your flowering plants, things like tomatoes and cucumbers, anything that sets off a flower and then produces a fruit out of it or a vegetable. It's going to need a lot of sun. Okay. Your lettuces and your herbs, they don't need as much sun. They can actually get away with 3 hours, maybe even 4 hours. And something else, one of the reasons why I think people contact us and ask for our help is because they want to be set up for success, right? Which, who doesn't? You want to have your basic building blocks in place to make sure that, hey, if I'm going to put all this energy and time into this garden, I'm going to have the best possible, I'm going to have all the tools so that I can, hopefully have success. So these are some of the things that are important to note about, starting your garden. And then what materials should you use? So this is where, whether you're just going to get some pots, whether you're going to create a raised bed, you can do anything from like reclaimed wood, pots that you already have. Something else that I've been seeing recently at some of the big box stores is they have the big metal troughs, like what you would use, to let animals drink out of, but they don't have a bottom on them. And they're specifically for gardening. I want to say they're like $120 for a good size one. That is a fantastic way to start your garden. Okay. If you're not handy, you're not going to build something, you just want to go get something and put it in your backyard. Those metal troughs are amazing. You can get bagged soil. I will tell you, it's not my favorite, but if you're going to use bagged soil, here's what I recommend. Get a wide variety. Do not get just one kind. Okay. They have come out with like raised bed soil now. I don't love it. A lot of times it has a whole lot of wood bark in it. Sometimes it's shredded bark, and that is not great for your soil. Again, when you start to, research all the things, you realize, is there any industry that is actually looking out for us? Not really. So the soil is another one where I kind of just go, ugh, I don't love bagged soil. So here's my suggestion. You can get a couple, maybe a third of the raised bed soil, and raised bed soil. But then you want to get a bunch of compost, black cow mushroom compost, or even when I saw chicken compost. Those things are great. And you can, like, get 10 bags of each or something like that. Get a wide variety to try to get some nutrients into your soil. Okay. So a container and soil, those are the two basic things that you need to start your garden. I am not paying attention to the chat because I have got one of the worst squirrel brains I have ever encountered. And so we will do questions at the end, hopefully. Okay, so I'm not ignoring you, but I will never finish if I read all the things. All right, so planting basics. Here's super important. You need to know what zone you are in. A quick internet search will tell you. You can put your zip code in and it will tell you what zone you're in. That is literally like what you base pretty much everything on. Your zones are based off of last and first frost date. And tomatoes in and you have a frost, they're going to die. Okay. And that would be so sad. So make sure you know what zone you're in. That's going to tell you kind of the time of year. It says my internet connection is unstable. I hope that doesn't continue. It's probably because my kid is on it. Anyway. So zone, super important. It's going to give you when you can plant things, what types of things you can plant. Here's something else, okay? A lot of people don't realize that you can't grow every type of food all year long. If you didn't know that, that's fine. The thing is, we can go to the grocery store and buy strawberries all year long, right? But strawberries don't grow all year. They especially don't grow over the winter. Here I'm in Texas, the Dallas area, lettuce and spinach and cilantro, all of that stuff croaks come about May, and it doesn't grow well again until about September. So, that's another really important thing to know. Set yourself up for success. Look at the times of year that you can grow certain plants. Okay. All right. So your two big options are seeds versus transplants. So you can either buy the seed packets or you can buy a plant and you transplant it into your garden. That is not cheating, by the way. We were installing a garden for a client. It was actually Jim Bob Haggerton. And Ellie, his daughter, saw us bring these plants to put in their garden. And she goes, "That's cheating. You didn't grow that from a seed," to him, like, "That's not how you do a garden." And it was like, oh, yes, it is. So it's not cheating. And if this is your first time gardening, just do transplants for, pretty much everything. Gardening is hard enough a lot of times. Trying to start your own seeds, on your own with a grow light and all of that, that's, kind of level 2 or 3. So don't feel bad about going to the store, going to your local farmer's market. That's where I have found the best price recently on plants. And I love supporting local farmers. So buy their, tomatoes and their peppers. Tomatoes and peppers are two of the things that you probably shouldn't put seeds in your garden. Okay. I won't say that you can't, but depending on where you live and how long your growing season is, there's certain restrictions, and I could talk for another 30 minutes all about just that, but I won't. Just trust me. Okay. All right. Planting tomatoes. You can plant tomatoes super deep. If you want to know more about any of this stuff, I like to ramble on and on in my garden on a regular basis on my Instagram. So at the end here, I will tell you where I'm at there, and you can, I talk about all this kind of stuff. So you can plant tomatoes super deep. Knowing how much space each plant takes is going to help you kind of plan out your garden. Square foot gardening is based on this entire idea. That's a great rabbit hole to go down. We started with that, and now I just put things where I think they look good, and but I still kind of keep in mind now that I know about how big a plant is going to be in a couple months. Something that's really important: feed your soil. Okay. Your soil is where your plants are going to get all the nutrients from. And so making sure that your soil is nutrient rich and nutrient dense is super important. Okay. I have listed there some ideas, some things that I like to put into my soil. at least once a year, but possibly twice a year. So compost, whether you make your own, whether you go buy it, whether you find a place in bulk, we buy our soil in bulk. It's typically cheaper. If you have access to a trailer or a truck, that's the cheapest way to get it. We do, the place that we get ours from has dairy cow manure compost, because it's not just manure, although it does smell a little bit like it, but it's compost. So it's dairy cow manure compost. It's been broken down. We do about, at least 50% just straight compost in our beds that we make. Biochar is like, it's not charcoal, but it's black. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's like a natural substance that, again, puts nutrients back into your soil. Blood meal and bone meal, those are really good. P.S. dogs like to eat those. So just keep an eye out for that. My dog was in our garden all day yesterday. But there are organic, organic blood meal, bone meal, azomite, which again is, I think it's broken down rocks and minerals and things. And it's, powder that you put out, and then worm castings. And you can buy these. You can even get them on Amazon, or you can travel to Ecuador and get them from the Young Living Farm. So you probably can't bring them back though. But if you've been to Ecuador, you've gotten to see the worm bins and how they have them. I tried that for a year and it was fun. But good gardens will bring up worms, from the ground. When we moved a whole bunch of our soil this last weekend, there were worms everywhere. So that will just naturally happen. All right. The most important thing a garden needs is the shadow of a gardener. Get out and look at your garden daily, even if it's a pot, even if it's, a 4x8 bed, go out and look at your plants on a daily basis. That is going to head off issues. It will prevent your zucchini from, becoming 2 feet long. It will prevent pests from completely decimating a plant. Go out and look at your garden daily. All right, so tending your garden. We are getting to the Young Living part of this, but just bear with me. Tending your garden. Okay, watering. Super duper important, right? Your garden is going to need water. Water the soil, not the leaves. This is very, I didn't know this for a number of years. I was like watering my leaves, on my plants. I'm like, oh, they're getting water. No, it's the soil. That's where the water needs to go. And actually a number of plants do not like wet leaves. Obviously, if it rains, you can't help that, but rain is a whole different ballgame. Rain is nectar from God. Okay. If you have never seen what rainwater does to your garden, pay attention to that this year. It is one of the most fascinating things to me, how rainwater is so different than what comes out of your hose, which again, all the things we know about, what cities do to our water that comes out of our hose makes sense, right? The chlorine and all the fluoride and all the junk that they do. But rainwater has it's steroids for your garden in the best possible way. All right. Deep watering less often is better. You want the water to get down deep. You want the roots of your plant to go down deep. If you water really shallow, like, you just kind of spray it on your garden just for a couple minutes, your roots are going to stay shallow because they're going to go towards the water. Well, if all the water is at the top of your soil, that's where your roots are going to be. So you will really want to get down deep. You want your roots to have to, go down and kind of find the water down there. Automate your watering if possible. You can get little timers on Amazon for like $30. I have my watering automated so that on those days where I'm like, oh, I really don't want to go outside and water, I don't have to. As temperatures rise, water more often. Watch your plants. They will tell you if they're unhappy, especially first thing in the morning. Go out and look at your garden, see what your plants look like. If they are super droopy, they're mad at you and they probably want water. Okay. Don't go out in the heat of the day and look at your plants. They're all going to be droopy. That's just what they do. But first thing in the morning is when you can kind of tell like, oh, okay, there's something going on here. Yellowing of your plants is typically a lack of nutrients. It can be from too much water. Usually if you need to back off on watering, you probably need to fertilize a little bit. But those are the two biggest things that I see in a garden that happens. All right, fertilizing. Please use an organic fertilizer. Put it around. Okay, so granular fertilizer are great. And you just literally sprinkle, the granules around the plants. You don't want it to get on the plants. I typically, so the rule of thumb for fertilizing or any kind of pest control is either first thing in the morning or after the sun has gone down. I will tell you that I almost am in my garden almost always after the sun has gone down. That is also when all the mosquitoes come out. My husband gets really mad at me because then I usually enlist his help to do something and then he gets eaten up. And thankfully there are oils for that. But one of those two times, don't do it in the heat of the day. Fertilizers and the pest control things are going to typically burn your plants. Also, our BFFs, Mr. B, you want lots of bees in your garden, right? And so they, again, you learn so much all the time in gardening. They like wake up, like they're not in your garden first thing in the morning. And typically after the sun goes down, they're not in there either. Like they're only there when the sun is out. They go back to their hives those other times. And so we never want to do anything that's going to harm them. The things that I use in my garden would not harm them anyway, because it's basically Thieves Household Cleaner, spoiler alert. But we don't want to mess with them, right? So that's one of the other reasons why first thing in the morning or after the sun has gone down, that's when I do my pest control, my fertilizing. Seaweed, molasses, fish emulsion, they have those in a trio in a lot of fertilizers. You can mix them, you can buy them separately. Those are things that you will spray on the leaves, okay? So water, the leaves do not absorb water, but they can absorb nutrients. So when you're fertilizing, read the back of the label, but you can spray the leaves when you've got a liquid fertilizer, and it'll tell you exactly, directions, what you're supposed to do, mix it with water, whatever. Again, first thing in the morning or after the sun has gone down, do something about every 2 weeks, if at all possible. I will tell you that I don't always do something every 2 weeks, but that is the goal, okay? In a perfect scenario. All right, how to use oils in the garden. Let's get to that. So there are a couple different ways that you can use oils in the garden. You can make a spray and you can, spray your plants. You can, spray yourself for, mosquitoes and things like that. Another thing that you can do, and this is a really great way to do it, and I'm trying to get better at this, but you can make up your mixture for whatever it is, whether you're trying to, encourage certain types of bugs or whether you're trying to discourage them. You make your mixture. You can soak strips of cloth in that mixture and then, put those around your garden. So whether you tie that to a tomato cage or whether you find, some sort of a stick and put that cloth on the stick and put that in your garden. That is a great way. And then you can, you could go out and just spray that cloth. I am a really lazy gardener. Okay. I'll be real honest. I need things to be easy. I need them to be quick. I need kind of a one size fits all. So I'm going to give you my recipe here in a minute, and I kind of use it for everything. Okay. So I like, quick and easy, or it's not going to happen. That's just how my life is. So with these strips of cloth, I will probably, I'll soak them first, but then I'll probably just go out and spray it after that, with a spray bottle. So make it work for you. If you are, not as lazy as I am, you could take the strips of cloth back inside and re-soak them and then go put them back out. And that's probably, the best way to do it. All right. Like I said, Thieves Household Cleaner is literally my most used Young Living garden product besides insect repellent and purification, but those are for me. But Thieves Cleaner I use in my garden literally on a daily basis. I order the big container of it, and I have a pretty big garden, but I will go through it one of those during, the growing season. So I love Thieves Household Cleaner. It is super duper useful. Okay. So there are things that we want to promote in the garden, right? We want bees. I mentioned those. Pretty much any flying insect is good. I will tell you, I don't like wasps, but I have come to a place where I'm like, you know what? They fly. They carry pollen, they pollinate my, plants. So I sort of tolerate them, but even, flies all the things, like anything that flies can help to pollinate your plants. And so there are some that are straight from the devil and should die, but most of them are really good. Okay. So bees, plant flowers in your garden. This is something that gets overlooked. And a lot of our clients are like, why are you planting flowers? Well, you want bees. And so literally yesterday, we finished 3 of our 4 beds yesterday, got soil in them. I just brought the plants that we were going to put in over, and I had some flowers there. We were standing, my husband and I were standing there talking. 3 bees, while we were just standing there, came over and landed on those flowers. And I was like, oh, look at, oh, I was just maybe, all warm and fuzzy inside because they love the flowers. So don't forget that. That is a super easy way to promote bees in your garden. Yeah, flowers. Now, when your actual, fruit and vegetables start to flower, that will encourage them. But right now they're too small. They don't have any flowers. So I want those bees in there, from now all the way through. I want them to know, hey, come here, big neon arrows, right, to my garden. That's what flowers do for your garden. All right. The other thing that you can do to promote bees coming to your garden, they love lemongrass, lavender, basil. I can't see the rest of that list. And sage. Also purification. Anybody ever wear purification and have bees follow you around? Yes, that's partially because the lemongrass is in there. But they love any of those oils. And so again, you can put those on strips of cloth and put those in your garden. They will find it. And you want bees in your garden. Another spray that you can make up, you can do 6 to 8 drops of lavender, 6 to 8 drops of orange, add 4 ounces of water. And you can go and you can put all these on your plants. Okay. These are safe for your plants. Again, first thing in the morning or after the sun has gone down. These are wonderful ways to promote the good things in your garden. Butterflies love lavender, mint, sage, and fennel. So you can actually plant those plants, but you can also spray with those essential oils if you don't have space for that. Ladybugs and lacewings. Those are good bugs to have in your garden. They take care of a number of kinds of pests. And coriander, dill, and fennel are all things that they like. And so again, you can plant those or you can spray your plants with them, and that will encourage them. I will tell you one little trick. So you've probably seen, if you've looked at a nursery, that they sell a lot of times ladybugs and or lacewings. If you do not have food for them to eat, they will not stay in your garden. Okay. So sometimes people are like, oh, I'm going to buy ladybugs because they're good for my garden. The only way that they stay there is if there are aphids for them to eat. So if you have an aphid problem, they can be really great at helping to take care of it. But if there's no aphids, they're going to fly away and they're going to go somewhere else. But that's what they're supposed to do. Okay. All right. Repel. So oils to promote, oils to repel. One thing I will say, that just like we were talking about the ladybugs, they, eat aphids. Nature knows how to balance things. Now I'm going to go back to one of the very first things I said. This isn't really nature, right? We're taking all these plants and like cramming them in a box and hoping to, get food from them. So we are kind of working outside of those rules a little bit. And so sometimes we have to help nature a little, but also just kind of keep that, in a perfect world. Have any of you seen Biggest Little Farm? Right? I think that's the name of it. If you haven't seen that, Google it. It is a wonderful show. I don't remember where it is, who has it. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube now, but Biggest Little Farm, you will cry, you will laugh, you will like cheer for the people, but they talk a lot about, I wish I could remember the name of that. My husband would know. The whole idea that nature balances itself. And so if you have they had a rat problem on their orchard. And so they built owl nests to come in and take care of the rats. And so instead of like putting out rat poison, they, found nature to help them do what they were trying to do. And so that is one of the things that you can do if you want to have a really good, the name was on the tip of my tongue. Just like an ecosystem where it all works together, how nature intended it. I've had a bat house that my husband has supposed to have hung up for the last 3 years. bats eat mosquitoes. Okay. Bats are so good. And we actually have bats that live in the trees. Like we don't even have to put a bat house up. Anyway, so instead of like spraying for mosquitoes, encourage the things that eat mosquitoes, right? So just be careful when you're, trying to get rid of things. Sometimes it has unintended consequences. That's all I'm saying. All right. So my favorite spray for pests. I double the concentrate of Thieves Household Cleaner. So you can just use your regular size, bottles that you use for cleaning your house. Label it for your garden, whether it's a pest, spray or, but I usually double the concentration of Thieves Household Cleaner. I add a little bit of Castile soap. Yes, Castile soap. And then some peppermint. Okay. Most bugs do not like peppermint. And I will spray all the things with that. So my biggest pests where I live are cucumber beetles. They look like yellow ladybugs, if you don't know any better. And I did not know any better the first year. So I thought they were good. And then I realized they were not. But cucumber beetles, and again, quick internet search will tell you what they look like, and squash vine borers. The mama lays her eggs on the vines of squash plants, zucchini plants. I'm trying to think what else. And the eggs, when they hatch, they bore into the middle of the vine and they eat it from the inside out. And within like 2 days, the whole plant dies. And it is awful. And there is not much you can do about it. So sometimes things die. Okay. That is the circle of life. And so if that happens, depending on the time of year, I will pull it out and I will plant a new one or plant a different something else. But that spray is my favorite. I use it all the time. Something else that I will tell you, if you have roses, Thieves Household Cleaner, just a double concentrate of regular Thieves Household Cleaner with nothing else in it, is great to spray on your rose bushes. A lot of times they get, oh, y'all, my brain works in movie quotes and songs. So on the rose bushes, they get, the black spots. And I always think of Zoolander, the black lung. Got the black lung pop. Okay, anyway. So the black spots on roses, you can spray the Thieves Household Cleaner and that works wonderful on them. And then, in the garden for different pests. And now I will say, being natural and the fact that it is going to, evaporate, water's going to wash it off. All of those things are good, right? We don't necessarily want the chemicals that are, going to adhere themselves to your plants and not move. You're going to have to do it often. Okay. This is not a chemical pest, deterrent. You might have to do it twice a day sometimes, but typically if you, are super disciplined about it for like a week, you can usually take care of the issue. So I will put that caveat out there. If you have ants, one of the things about ants is when it rains, they like come out of the ground. They build these, ant hills. A lot of times within a week, they go away. So if it's not in my garden, I usually just leave it alone. And, like I said, within a week, they go away. I've never studied the behavior of ants, but that's true. Trust me. So if they are in your garden, though, again, we don't necessarily want to go buy chemicals to get them out of the garden, but you can use a mixture of equal parts sugar and borax. You can add cinnamon to that, whether you use like actual cinnamon or the essential oil. Either one is really good. They also hate peppermint. So there's that. Something else that I use a lot in my garden is cold pressed neem oil. This is not the same as most sprays that you find at the big box stores are junk, total junk. Okay. Look for, I get mine usually on Amazon, organic cold pressed neem oil. Okay. This is a really good repellent, deterrent. Bugs don't like it. It will actually kill a lot of them. And what's great about this is when you buy the good stuff, it's super concentrated, kind of like our oils. And you only use a little bit, like a tablespoon or two. And so that bottle will last you forever. But neem oil is a fantastic repellent. And you will find if you, Google any kind of, bug spray, it's probably going to be in there. One other thing to note for weeds, a 20% vinegar. So the vinegar you buy at the store is typically 5% vinegar. But nurseries carry a 20% vinegar solution that is used especially for weeds. And this kills on contact when you spray whatever you're wanting to kill with the vinegar, and then the sun hits it, it burns it. Okay. So do not spray this in your garden, and don't spray it on a windy day. We have done that before. I do not spray this. Like, the only place that I really use this is in my walkways. We are going to put rocks in our walkways. And so you can, spray the vinegar where it's not anywhere close to plants or flowers, because it will kill anything that it comes in contact with. Okay. And I did not quite finish all my slides here, so I'm going to give you these last couple things. I don't have a slide for them, but I use tons of Young Living products on myself when I'm gardening. Okay. Before, after, all the things. So obviously our sunscreen, it's fantastic. And our insect repellent. Those are two of my very favorite things. I try to put them on before I go out in the garden. I usually forget, and then I have to use other Young Living products to help afterwards. But sunscreen and insect repellent, the wipes are fantastic. I love just grabbing a wipe and, wiping down my arms and things like that. If you do happen to get bites, purification is literally my lifesaver. So many times I've had to, I keep a roller top on my purification, and I go through that in the summer months like crazy. So if you live in a place with mosquitoes, as I do, it's your new BFF. Lavender also works really, really good. Use a lot of that. Like I said, I typically forget my sunscreen. So, or I just like to get vitamin D. And so sometimes I get, a little toasty. Lavender is my favorite. Lavaderm is also really good. I use peppermint on poison ivy. It helps to dry it up. Sore muscles, we have so many things for that. Deep Relief, CBD muscle rub, Cool Azul pain cream, the Cool Azul gel. In my bath after I garden, a lot of times I like to add Copaiba. It's just remembering an experience I had with peppermint in the bathtub. I do not recommend that. You will end up with like red little spots all over, because it is quite hot. And then for dry skin, I love rose ointment or animal scents. Some people don't know that you can use animal scents on people. Absolutely can. But rose ointment is fantastic too. So any, cracked or dry hands, feet, all the things, it is wonderful, wonderful for. All right. Oh, pets. So here's my dog. I mentioned loves bone meal, especially, and then the fertilizers that I use. She was eating it today. So if you have dogs or cats and you want to keep them out of your garden, dogs do not like black pepper essential oil. So you can, again, soak some strips of cloth in black pepper. That will help to keep them out of the garden. And then cats do not like rosemary. So that's an idea for that if they are frequenting your garden. Usually when the plants get bigger, they'll stop messing with things. But there's always those one or two special little animals that nothing deters. Okay. I think that is all of my notes. Oh, let me check here. Oh, I've got one more slide here, I think. Yeah. So I have a website and a Facebook and an Instagram. My personal one, I talk a lot about gardening on, but we also have a gardening Instagram where I try to post different things. But that is, I think, all of what I have. I'm sure there were some questions that popped up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay. Oh, good. Squirrel Be Gone spray. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Kathy. That was wonderful. How do you keep chickens out of your flower bed? Well, Um, I, you put a fence up. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the only way. Um, you're going to have to deter them with something like that. Um, yes, there will be a replay. It will be put in the Grow group by Friday, I believe. Yeah, in the featured, I think is the title of where the replays are. Squirrel Be Gone spray was on there. BB guns work good for squirrels. um, that's my husband's job typically, to go take care of those. Wood. Somebody asked, why is wood bad in compost? So the shredded wood, it for one can soak up the water, but also as it breaks down, it can rob the soil of nitrogen. They use it as a filler. Again, it's not going to have any nutrients. Now, after the wood is broken down, it can be great, but when it's a lot of times they use it as a cheap filler for soil, and so it doesn't do anything good for your plants, and just makes it hard on them. So if you have soil that has a lot of, wood shavings or shredded wood in it, I would just go get straight compost, add straight compost, to your soil, and just know that you might have to fertilize a little bit heavy this season. I wouldn't necessarily like take it all out and start over, because again, I'm lazy, right? So just add some compost, get some good fertilizer every 2 weeks, make sure that you're fertilizing. Peppermint on the back of the neck protects its heat. Yes, absolutely. Oh, nice. Christine said she runs her fingernails through the jar of animal scents ointments to keep her nails nice while working in the dirt. For sure. Yeah. CBD muscle rub is a gardener's best friend. All right. Okay. So somebody asked about pickling vinegar. I haven't used that before. Like I said, I go get a big jar or big bottle of the 20% vinegar, but it is worth a try for sure. Okay, Castile soap. Yeah. Again, you can just look on the internet for some good recipes. For exactly how much. It obviously depends on how big your container is. But usually I want to say it's like a tablespoon per gallon, maybe. I have a gallon jug, and I think that's what it says. Like, I might even say a teaspoon per gallon. So you don't need a ton. Biggest Little Farm, yes. Going back. Oh, nice. Wasps don't like peppermint, so that's good. They also don't like, we have some of those electric, they look like tennis rackets, but you push the button and they kill the bugs. They don't like those either. It electrocutes them, and then it smells funny. Oh, wow. Somebody said when they had a colony of bees that came to their area, the beekeeper said that you could rub orange essential oil directly onto the bees' wax in the hive. So I would guess that they like that. Yes, they like Lang Lang, purification. They like a lot of the floral, which duh, they like flowers, right? Like that's what they're attracted to. So again, just, when you start to put these puzzle pieces together and realize how amazing our oils are, how they fit in with nature, how literally, God created all of these things to work together, it just makes me love, my products even more, knowing that like I am putting, literal nature on my body. And that's what I use like for my emotions and for, I just all the things like it just there's nothing better, y'all. There really isn't. Oh yeah, tomato hornworms. All right, tomato hornworms. You know what you do with those? You pick them off and you either feed them to your chickens or you squish them. That's my husband's other job. He squishes worms. Okay, here's another thing. If you have tomato hornworms or you suspect that you do, if your entire tomato plant is gone in like a day, you probably have tomato hornworms. After dark, you can take, if you have a black light, you can go out and they glow and you can find them and pick them off and kill them. But that's with a number of pests. So the worms especially, so there's different types of worms that are bad, right? So army worms are bad. Obviously your earthworms are amazing, but the bad worms, a lot of times they come out after dark. And so I will take just a regular flashlight a lot of times and go look after dark. So many good tips. If you guys didn't read the comments, highly recommend it. Like I said, I was not able to during the class because that just doesn't go well. Deer don't like blood meal. Awesome. So that's a great one. Remember, organic blood meal and bone meal is super easy to find. And like I said, dogs like it, but it's all right. Yeah, something else that's cheap and easy. Okay, so mulching your garden. Mulching is really just putting a layer of something over top of your garden to help protect the soil, to keep moisture in. I try to do it. Sometimes it also keeps your plants a little bit cooler and or a little bit warmer. So back when we had the freeze-mageddon last year and Texas broke, I mulched really heavy with leaves. I had bags of leaves and some straw, and then I put my frost cloth over that. But we, again, sometimes I'm lazy and bags of leaves will sit in an area of our backyard for like a year. Well, here's what happens. All of that starts to break down and compost, and it turns into this incredibly rich soil. And so I mentioned that we like kind of started over with our garden this year. And so what we did was in the bottom of our garden beds, because soil is expensive right now, just like everything else. Lumber is really expensive, fertilizer, everything has gone up, right? Inflation. So in the bottom of our beds, instead of filling the entire bed with soil, I put a whole bunch of all of my dead tomato plants from last fall that were in my garden until last week. I took those and put those in the bottom because that's like kind of like sticks and twigs, right? And then I put lots of leaves. And so a lot of these leaves had started to break down and they were almost like dirt instead of leaves, which is, again, that's compost, right? So fantastic for your garden. There were, earthworms and lizards in there. It was great. So we put tons and tons of leaves. And then on top of that, we put our soil, and there was a lot of compost in that soil. And so one thing, if you do that, if you put some of that stuff in the bottom, just know that as that stuff breaks down, your soil level is going to go down. So you're probably going to have to add more soil next year. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But that will, so that's a whole idea if you want to go down this rabbit hole or rabbit trail. Hugelkultur is that it's fascinating. And you plant a bunch of things, you put a bunch of like logs and all these things in the middle of your bed, and it actually retains moisture, so the roots can get down and get the good stuff down the bottom, and then as it breaks down, it feeds your plants as well. So hugelkultur is a whole really cool ball of wax. So if you're super nerdy and want to read about it, go for it. But that's kind of the idea of putting some of that stuff. All right. Let's see. There were some more questions as I was talking. Oh, the bug assault gun. Yes, that's so fun. We love that thing. And it works really good outside because then the salt, stays outside instead of all over your house. Ask me how I know that one. The 20% vinegar, I do not dilute. So I just put it in a sprayer. Again, clearly mark your sprayers. You can go buy just like a handheld sprayer for $5 or $10 at a big box store. And that saves you from having to like squirt a million times, right? You get trigger finger. Why'd you get that? Oh, spraying vinegar on my weeds. But I do not dilute it. Just do the straight 20%. It is super duper strong smelling, but it works really, really good. Oh, somebody said bar soap under your nails before you go out to garden, and then it's easier to clean up. Yes, I have perpetual garden nails, which is why I always put nail polish on. Yes, awesome. Okay, so I think I talked a little bit about the composted leaves, composted food manure. So, okay, if you're going to do your own compost, this is something important. You need to have a mixture of, they say, green and brown. And I'll finish up with this. So your green is like your food, and it can be live things, live quote unquote. So like live grass clippings that are still green or plant material. And then brown, which is like dead leaves or even, wood, things, dirt from different things, but you need a mixture of both to have really good, healthy compost. So that was a question that came in. But yeah, you actually want both. So, all right, y'all. I had a great time. I hope that you learned some things. Yes, hugelkultur. Somebody spelled it out there because it's, I don't know, German, Swedish, Nordic. I don't know. It's something not here, and I'm a bad speller anyway. So it is German. All right, there we go. That was my first guess.